my YouTube channel. Oh, it's in the recording. Hello for everybody that can hear me.
You are streaming right now, you know.
Yeah, I'm streaming. Uh, oh, that's not the way I do this.
Evie, chill.
Evie, what's going on?
Yeah, she's been quiet and then boom.
You didn't like the music that was playing? Something else, right? I shouldn't.
Shh.
I gotta set up my Facebook for anybody that happens to be here yet. And I appear to be locked up.
Uh-oh.
I don't know why.
Well, you probably...
Yeah, I didn't do that right. It's okay. I'm back on track.
How many tabs you got open?
1,000. No, I don't know how many it is.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, I never am.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, no, no. But there's nobody on the chat. Nobody cares about us. They've given up on me.
Oh no. Wait.
Live streaming. Link in the comment.
Okay, let me see. I got this notification that somebody named 3SPM is streaming.
Yeah, that's somebody I know.
That guy looks like you.
He's an imposter.
There's two people in the chat.
Oh, okay, good. Hello. I think I just did it on Facebook and kind of want to put that link into Twitter too. I've been wanting to do that. It's not called that anymore, I know.
Sunshine says turn up the volume. I have you up to 100 and can hardly hear you.
Oh, really? Turn up the volume. I thought the volume was up as well, much as it's going to be. Okay, that's...
Talk louder.
Hello, hello, hello.
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Did that help, Sunshine?
Yeah, I talk louder when I'm getting ready to talk. Right now I'm not talking because... Let's look at the mixer. Hello, hello. Well, you know what? It's up all the way, so maybe I need to reboot.
Talk louder.
Hello, hello, hello.
I don't know. I can hear you okay. Did that help, Sunshine?
Yeah, I'll talk louder. Greetings, Midnight Cooking. Sunshine says hi. Turn up the volume. Oh, that's the one person that said that. Yeah, yeah, I can just bring it closer to me too. I guess I didn't have it close enough. If I can't just add this on Twitter easily, I'm gonna not do it.
Oh, I didn't know you still posted there.
No, I don't want to sign in because I don't want to go look for my password and all that stuff, so forget about that. Okay, well, okay, let me just make sure this is working. That's working. Okay, good. Okay, I put Ulma. Let's see, what was that name of that individual? That comet? Uma Thule, I believe it was. Long time ago, and there's two different in my icon for the show. There's Uma Thule again in the top right corner of my picture of my screen there, and there's again two pictures of that comet. That was supposed to be a comet that they realized looked like two objects joined together. Even showed the seam as having some kind of bright white material. So I thought that was interesting to stick in there. But I kind of wanted to, I named this Evolution of Mind because it's one of the things that was talked about by T and Do in a lot of tapes, but not using that word necessarily, but just growth of the mind was the whole idea. The whole purpose of the civilization, according to T and Do. And so it's, everybody's not in the same place in that. And nobody knows who's ahead of anybody else, so it doesn't make any difference to try to guess who is ahead of somebody else. It's a waste of time anyway. The same teachings apply from T and Do, that they were providing the upgrades to what the next level had been doing during this entire civilization. That they were doing during
Where's
this
the chat?
entire civilization. Right there. Yeah, I guess like that. Yes, talking louder works. Okay, good. Sunshine, thanks for that help.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a slideshow playing in the top right of my screen, and I've got a little bit of a Bible, some Bible verses on the other side of my screen, because um, of what happened in Paris during the Olympics, where they,
All kinds of stuff been happening, huh?
yeah, they've been having difficulties ever since they had a referendum to get a new government, and there are all kinds of negotiating going on um, with the Paris government, the France government, and so when they did the Olympics, I didn't. I just saw clips of it with showing um, what I believe was depicting the pale rider on the white horse. Was it a white horse? I guess so.
A silver. It looks silver to me.
Silver kind of horse. Yeah, and then which I think was a video, thing that was put on the screens of some sort during the opening ceremonies, and then uh, and then they had a major power outage uh, right after that, as I understand it. The whole city was black for a little bit, dark, and that horse is supposed to be the dark horse. So I don't know if that was a gimmick or something that somebody was doing. I don't know what they were doing because they also portrayed the Last Supper in drag, I guess, which I don't have a problem with really. I don't.
Well, there's some controversy over whether that was actually the Last Supper or not, or if it was just some other depiction of Dionysus, the god of wine and debauchery, and
Mm,
like it's Greek,
mm-hmm.
because they were in. I don't know why
Who
Greek
is she the
comes into
daughter
being
of?
France.
Do you not remember?
What?
Dionysus.
No, that's a guy.
Oh, that's a guy. Okay.
Yeah,
So what was he the son of?
I
You
have
know,
no idea.
I don't know in mythology, but because sometimes the mythology makes sense
I don't
in in these writings. Now, I was asked the other day why I referred to parts of the Bible as records, because to me they're historic records. They're not religious material, even though the religions were founded because of the next level bringing their older members and younger members to the planet via spacecrafts to perform a task of going through the birth canal into adult membership in the next level for the students. And so the records we have from that aren't all accurate necessarily. Like Tiendo said about the Old Testament, that there were things that were not. It was tampered with. It was distorted and diluted, which always happens after members of the next level that are in the flesh. That's what that really means, in the flesh. Uh, are on the planet looking like humans but having a mind that is greatly evolved beyond the human condition. They're no longer mammals. And so they have a whole society of people working in laboratories that can be as big as planets or as small as they want them to be. And they have other kinds of spacecrafts that they have in order to have laboratories of crew members, in the old English terminology, angels, working on projects. And you have a weather lab, you have a Earth lab, that's the overall lab, I guess, of the Earth. Yeah, and then and they take care of everything to do with the Earth, and they respond. They help humans, and they give humans challenges to help them grow, to help them evolve their minds. And some of that evolution takes place in almost a kind of osmosis kind of way. Like they don't even know necessarily where they're perceiving the updated upgraded information that is more accurate to the reality of the next level and the reason for the earth and the human kingdom, to be able to produce new members into the next evolutionary level above human, which is really the future. The future isn't just, next year. That's an aspect of the future. But the future, in the terms that Tian-Do referred to it as, is evolving beyond being mammalian, being seed-bearing, because members of the next level don't bear seeds, like humans do, and animals do, and plants do, and I don't know if minerals produce seeds, but I don't think so. But those are all kingdom levels of life and support of life that lead to the human kingdom, where individuals have the choice of what to put their belief behind. And belief isn't blind. Belief doesn't really happen by miracles. There is no proof in that could be considered to be proof for the long range given, but there are things that the next level does to help humans.
I did it.
You did. So that's Kathy's voice you're hearing, which will help me sometimes, and help me explain things better when I don't, and remember things that I might not remember, because Kathy has we've been together for a long time, and she's, even before I met her, she was studying the materials and listening to the audio tapes and the videotapes and reading the Heaven's Gate book and watching the Beyond Human series videotapes, and so and over 200 audio tapes that we've listened to, many of those together. But Kathy listens to them, sometimes almost every day, and so I listen to them with her some of the times, most of the times, because sometimes she listens to them 2 or 3 times. So anyway, she's got a lot of same perspectives that I got from Tian-Do.
10 tapes ahead of you now.
She's 10 tapes ahead of me right now, even though I was sitting there. But it's apparent every time I hear a tape of how much I didn't really perceive, because this information from Tian-Do is not easy to perceive. We may think that we understand it. And a lot of people do sum things up in their minds when they just hear documentaries. They think all of a sudden that they're the judge and jury, and they know everything there is to know about the Heaven's Gate group because they've watched all the documentaries. Yet,
not speaking about anyone in particular.
No, that's not talking about anyone in particular, but some of those individuals sometimes are the ones that are very quick to condemn Kathy and myself if we happen to be doing some kind of interview or something together, which we have done. And they find out about it and they read it, and they say things that are very cruel and ugly and negative about us, and yet they have no evidence of any of that, and they never will, because well, for one, is the big difference between us in relationship to Tian-Do's information is that we don't really, I don't want to say care. It's not like it's like but it doesn't really matter to us for our own growth whether people believe what we say or not, what Tian-Do say or not, and because there is no group, there is no suicides, There's no need for that kind of uh, action when we are all humans. And Tiendo said in our position against suicide that humans need their vehicles in order to learn lessons through them. And that's the only way they can evolve and grow and become even someday a member of the next level themselves. And they'll go through their own process. And meanwhile, uh, um, uh, the next level has left behind their mind in the audio tapes and the videotapes, in the ether as well, and in the individuals that received it and are still receiving it and believe in it and talking to others about it.
Oh, that brings up the point where they were saying that everybody in the class, you don't have to, it's alright, you can repeat what I said, that everybody in the class was going to go on to, anyone that had been in the class was going to return back to the next level.
Right. So T said at one point that I think there were somewhere in the 30s, the number of us at that point, number of students in T and O's classroom. I was one of them, and Kathy was not. Just to be, clear about it. So that all those individuals she was talking about the souls. Uh,
And even people that had left and that hadn't even come in yet to the class.
yes, in other words, all the souls that came here, came to the earth, were brought to the earth by Tiendo's crews in order to go through the opportunity of remembering and waking up, which happens when the next level instigates that for vehicles by giving them a deposit of their mind, which I can explain the technical part of that at some future time. And I'd actually rather have you look at the Heaven's Gate book to where they talk about incarnating and discarnating and in a technical way, because it's all scientific. It's not. There's nothing willy-nilly about the next level information, and it's not hocus pocus, and it's not supernatural. It's only looked at those ways when people don't know what the real truth is. And so the best they can do sometimes is they don't even know they're doing it, is have a belief in something that they know that they don't understand, but they understand enough to believe in it. And so they're like, it may look like a blind faith, but actually it doesn't really develop in somebody unless they have experiences and of trying to bring in the mind and behaviors and ways and be of service to the next level by doing that and by sending out their thoughts to other people, because their thoughts are in a right way, in a evolved way, stronger thoughts than because they contain next level true information. So when a next level member says something, because of their perspective, uh, um, the power of that perspective is with that thought. But somebody is not going to necessarily recognize it unless the next level gave them a little bit of a boost to recognize it. The same kind of way that they gave me a boost and they gave Kathy a boost, even though she wasn't in the classroom at the time, and the way they give anybody a boost. Because if they don't give people a boost, then the lower forces have so bombarded this kingdom with confusion about what happened in the past that it's almost impossible for an individual that isn't given that boost to actually get their head above water, the water of the misinformation, programming of the human kingdom. So, like, even if it seems like a simple thought, it's very, very, very hard to recognize it as reality. Okay, so an example of that can be throughout the history that we know about of the human kingdom during this current civilization. And to where whenever there was a big technological development or somebody came up with a new way of thinking, like they did with the member of the next level doing the Jesus task, which I believe was Doe, and that's very well evidenced. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to stop him from influencing those that believed in what they were saying was from God and things like that. And then the governments go along with that because it creates disturbances. And, if people don't have loyalty to the king, or the pharaoh or the whatever, the leader is called in a different country, then they're considered to be, a threat to that leadership. And so they're more than happy to get rid of anybody that poses such a threat. And that's what happened to Jesus, of course. And Jesus knew, Jesus knew ahead of time that that was his task, to actually be confronted by that, to bring about his departure, but not until he had given his information that his older member on a spacecraft was giving him to deliver to the student souls that were taking human vehicles over to, move closer to their graduation into the next level from the human kingdom. And that's why a next level lab crew worked very hard to make sure that the teachings of Jesus were accurate enough, even though there were distortions and dilutions in the New Testament. Like, for instance, by putting too much emphasis on Paul's letters. I don't know if the next level would have really wanted that to be there, but I think they did. Otherwise, it probably, I don't know if it would have got lost, but because Paul initially, at least, he was never with Jesus, so he didn't get a whole bunch of those helps, and that help from the next level to have the choice. It's still a choice to accept and outgrow their more primitive understanding about life and what the level above human really was, the kingdom of God, the kingdom in the heavens really was. So that, but they worked very hard to keep his words accurate, because his words do describe some of the requirements for graduation, where before that the graduation requirements were not given by Elijah or Moses or Enoch or Adam, which were all tasks that were done by the soul, the older member soul, that we now know of as Doe. Anyway, I'll go to the chat room for a minute here. I think I'm at a stopping point. Avatar's here and says, "Hi, Kathy."
Hello.
And says hello, hello, hello. So yeah. But anyway, back to the events happening in Paris. A number of Christians that I get links from sometimes. I don't get many anymore, but they were kind of upset by that depiction, and whether it was meant to be the Last Supper or not, I don't know. I thought that's what, at least they were interpreting it that way. I don't know why. It's because of the way they were sitting
Yeah, the way that they were sitting.
and they were the eating and stuff. Because I saw a bunch of people dressed in all different colored outfits and stuff. And
It was actually a runway show,
oh yeah,
and they were the spectators, and the runway was what they were sitting in front of.
oh, okay, I didn't see that.
I watched a little breakdown of it.
Okay, was that horse person
Well,
on the
the
runway?
first thing that I heard was that no, I didn't see anything about that. In the thing that I watched. Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Anyway, the reason but so when I saw that,
They were saying it was Joan of Arc, though, supposedly.
oh, on the horse,
Mm-hmm.
oh, so I don't know what that was about then. If Christians were just, I don't know.
Just because somebody tells you something means something doesn't mean that it does, right?
Yeah, but people did start reporting it right away, like people like Russell Brand and other
Well,
people.
yeah, 'cause they, clickbait.
Oh yeah, you think it was clickbait to get them to watch the Olympic show kind of thing?
No, I mean anybody that was immediately reporting on that and saying it's this, it's this, it's this,
Oh,
without hearing anything from the actual event organizers or
yeah.
looking at what like the vision or the plan or whatever the heck was, instead of just jumping on the bandwagon of they're mocking everything.
Well,
I don't know.
for whatever it's worth, even though I could be wrong about it, I think they were mocking religion because I see that all the time happening throughout
Yeah,
governments.
and then so my thing after that is like, okay, so if they are, mocking Christianity, religion, whatever, so what?
Right,
So that lets you know that's something that's content you don't want to consume. If you don't agree with that, then don't watch it.
right. It
I
shouldn't
guess
make
you
you
can raise
violent
the
or
red
anything.
flag. Yeah, like there's some of the people,
Uh,
I don't know,
it's-
some of the things I've seen on Facebook.
right.
It's
Well,
like, calm down.
well,
Like,
people that are into the religions, whatever they are,
yeah, but they act
you
like,
can see that
no.
they hate each other a lot of times. Even different sects of the religion, same religion, can hate each other to the point of, beating each other up and killing each other and stuff, and in
Yeah.
the wars and stuff. And that's because, according to my understanding from Tiendo, that's because um, those people that brought about the religion that distorted and diluted what the next level provided through their membership incarnate um, tend to attach to it in such a way that they can let that build themselves up into something that's uh, better than the average human, or you're aspiring to the ultimate. And you could say that about members of the Heaven's Gate group as well, that you can listen to their tapes and they'll talk about Tiendo will talk about how the students with them were in a program to outgrow the human kingdom. And so, since the human kingdom was meant to be a stepping stone into the next level by design, that means that if you're moving out of the human kingdom, you're moving to a higher place, a higher state of mind, a higher state of living, being, existing, a higher state of physicality, more technology, more everything. And so the test that's given to us all that are in the human kingdom is if we recognize that, because they gave us the help to recognize it, are we going to put some effort into learning about what they had to say, and based on our choices every day, apply what we want to apply? And not slip into judging people that don't choose that direction, because there's no reason for it. There's no reason for me to tell people that you're condemned to this or that if you don't change your behaviors and ways. And frankly, I don't know what's going to happen to anybody, and I'm glad I don't know, because I don't know if I can handle the negativity that would come because of that. I mean, and pretending to know, because the next level doesn't give anybody that knowledge except, well, I don't know who they give that knowledge to. I can't say, because they do give us the help to recognize them. And if we didn't have that help, then we wouldn't recognize them. We wouldn't even have the choice to recognize them. And so the way that things have been going in the world since they left, to me, is filled with opportunities to actually recognize that T and Do were exactly who they said they were. Even though many Christians would say the same thing about Jesus, that all these things are happening in an escalated way with troubles in the world and in our own lives, and all kinds of things, that of course people have had troubles all over the world as long as we can see history. Okay, so are there more now? Well, I think so, but it's not necessarily obvious, because we get used to certain things. Okay, so I mean, like for instance, people in the United States are very used to the United States being engaged in wars in foreign lands. That's nothing new. And we're very used to the government lying to us about those wars and the reason for them, and who they are and the opposing views, who the enemy is and why. And so, those that, okay, no, let me back up to the situation where you hear something about T and Do and you think, wow, I don't know if I believe that. That's pretty strange. Well, look at the way they left. Is that right? Is that something that, they're expecting me to do or something? Which they're not. They're not expecting anybody to do anything. And they don't even think that's a right choice to leave the way they did, when you're human and you haven't had all the teachings and help from the next level to outgrow everything in the human kingdom. But we all get help to outgrow certain things in the human kingdom. Like one of the things in the human kingdom that we've all been given the opportunity to outgrow is looking at other humans that look differently than us as lesser in some way. Regardless of whether they have money or not, or whether they have careers that are considered to be full of intelligence or not, or whether they have, robust families and they give to charities and they're philanthropic and or not and whatever humans are, we're all still humans, but we all have different pluses and minuses relative to the next level's judgment of pluses and minuses. So one person may have incredible patience with people that are just not understanding something, and they know that they know about it. And I'm not talking about knowledge from like faith or from reading the Bible, because even the things that, or what Tiendo even said, but because of seeing changes in themselves when they put into effect things that uh, a member of the next level gave to the human kingdom, and they recognize how it helped them in a way that they consider to be help, and so that becomes their own knowledge then, that the next level, if we ask them for that help, uh, helped us achieve. And an example that I give, which is I don't have personal experiences with, but is the usage of substances to a degree where somebody is really uh, can't do without, or is suffering in their health, mental or physical, or in some way, or even being prone to abusing others, or stealing in order to get what they want, or being deceitful, or which aren't the worst things in the world when no one else is really being harmed, I would say, but it's all not behavior of members of the next level. But it's all part of the human kingdom, um, to to get out of. The human kingdom is meant for the individuals in it to have experiences in the human kingdom. So when they become aware of a program to actually evolve beyond the human kingdom, they have the the characteristics of human, which we all have, but certain characteristics that those souls that the next level brings back, when they take a certain human vehicle, will present those souls with uh, building up the strength to block out whatever influences are keeping them down or keeping them in a negative place about themselves or about their accomplishments or a lack of accomplishments by the human description of those words. And but that to the next level can be positives, that they don't relate to the humans, that they don't want to climb the social ladder, they don't want to climb the career ladders, they just don't have the energy for it. Or if they do, and they stay in it even though it may be going in a direction that uh, they don't agree with, but then they can become attached to it. And the same thing as with addictions, and you can get attached to a religion in the same way. In fact, that can be a very major addiction to the religion, because the religion, for instance, when was the teachings of Jesus given? They were given 2,000 years ago. Now, that's not a long time in the next level, but for humans, that's quite a long time. We don't really have a robust history of everything that was happening then. I mean, right down to details and everything. We do have some of it, through writings and things, of course, over the years from different people, but it's always somebody's interpretation, and and the history books are generally written by the ones that have conquered at the time. So you never get a real objective view of history. But the souls that are going through that with vehicles, which is potentially many humans through the ages, uh, they retain the lessons that they learn. So if they got addicted to some substance 2,000 years ago, or they were in the habit of, let's use a different example, of leading other people and telling them what to do and telling them that they need to go over to that other country over there and protect our interests in that country, or and even be willing to kill people to stop people from taking over what the government is interested in, and but they have a conflict in themselves with whether that is an action that their sense of a God would have them do, and they continue with that action, then they're not learning. Doesn't mean that they can't learn. They can learn at any point, as far as I understand. And when they do learn that that's not the behavior a member of the next level would do, then they are literally learning that and knowing why, even though they might not be able to describe it that well, until someone like Tian Do come, and then that soul, after it lost its last vehicle, the physical body that it was occupying 2,000 years ago, the next level brings back to continue with their lessons. And so the next level helps them select vehicles that they can give a little deposit to, that gives them the ability to recognize the truth when it's being talked about, so that they can choose at that moment to join up with the older members and even stay with them through the very, very, very difficult task of overcoming their humanness to enough of a degree to where the next level wants to give them another task that's not on the planet. Even if they have to be brought back to a human condition again to further experience some things in the human kingdom to help build their minds. Because it's not the human behaviors that are so wrong. They're not really wrong for humans. They're just part of the human kingdom. Well, like reproduction of, having families and things like that. That's not next level behavior to have families, because their family are members of the next level and they don't procreate. So somebody that wants to become a member of their family has to know that ahead of time, so that they have that program in their minds, that idea in their minds, that perspective in their minds, that knowledge in their minds. And so that when the older members come around and they say, okay, well, you have to leave all that behind if you want to actually be with us. And, humans are going to think that you're doing a bad thing. You're abandoning people that, you're responsible for, which they would be responsible for if it wasn't a genuine older member that was actually saying, okay, if you believe in what we're saying, and you want to be in this program, then come with us and we'll help you. And members of the next level in their laboratory crews will help any that you leave behind for that. Now, I'm not telling people to leave anybody behind. Tian Do said that humans are responsible for their offspring. So, you can think that that's contradictory, but it's not, because everybody's not in the same place. Everybody's not ready to move on. Maybe I wasn't ready to move on. I mean, I certainly have a number of lessons to learn that that I didn't even identify while I was in the classroom. There were a lot of things. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there were a number of things that are a lot in scope that I didn't get. I, when they would say it, I would, okay, I would believe it, but I didn't really identify with it. Like, for instance, they would say that this is the hardest task a human can do. And I didn't think it was that hard. Well, you know why? Because my standard wasn't very high. And I didn't know that I was allowing things in my mind that were negative thoughts related to next level growth. And I was thinking that I was doing better than I really was. And after I left, I ended up, like Doe said would happen to me. He told me that directly, that I wanted to become more objective. I didn't even know that's what I wanted, but I guess I was so confused about the changes that I went through so fast while a member of the crew that the only way that I could, you know, I just felt like I had to leave. And so Doe supported me in that decision because he would support anybody making that choice. But that didn't mean he wanted me to do that, to make that choice. He didn't. He thought that I was capable of becoming a good member of the next level, which means that I would be willing to up my fight, increase my energy towards overcoming whatever was trying to pull me back into the world. And because he knew that I had the capacity. Now, that didn't mean that every member of that crew that left when they left was automatically had conquered everything that they had to conquer, because the purpose of conquering difficulties is to gain strength of mind. So you actually get more willpower the more you conquer, because you learn the ropes of what it is that's actually keeping you in a more subdued condition of life, temporary life in the human kingdom, because these vehicles don't last very long, really, relative to the next level's lifespan that they don't really have, because they still have the choice to leave, but they don't want to because they're having so much fun and fulfillment. It's not just fun, but it's a kind of fun that that at the time when I joined, when T and Do would say, that yes, there's fun in the next level, but it's not. It's like observing horses running in a field, and they're having fun. But would that be fun to a member of the next level? And I thought, well, not really to me, but I mean, there are humans that have fun with sports, and that's running around, But but there's ways of having fun that are basically strictly of the mind, and people that know now about the internet, which I didn't know anything. There was no internet when I joined. Now know that they can have a lot of fun on the internet. Okay, but still, it's not going to even compare to the kind of fun that members of the next level have, because members of the next level aren't doing things necessarily just for relaxation. They may have some of that time for doing things that are purely for relaxation or change of pace, but their main fun is being parts of crews, helping humans when humans are asking for help. Like when a human is in need of help and they genuinely ask the highest source they can imagine, whatever they think that is, the next level has computer systems that can detect that. It's like through a type of radio wave, I believe, that humans haven't been given the help to decipher as existing. But it's on the level of thought. And now the next level doesn't invade our thoughts, but if we ask them for help, then they want to see what we're up against. And they will, tune into us and see what they can do to help us learn for ourselves. They don't do it for us, but they may give us some help to get over the hump in some way in the human kingdom. Like, maybe there'll be some way that, we find that we can make more money to solve a problem here, but they're not in the business of helping us with humanness, but they do send us influences that are in that business if it can help us get past some aspect of life in the human kingdom that is taking so much of our energy that we don't have the energy to actually pull on their mind. I mean, by actually, in this case, examine Tiando's materials for themselves instead of just believing what the media told us about the group. And because you get very little, you do get clues. And those clues are what individuals recognize that can even just become curious whether there's more to understand about it. And when they're curious and they actually look at the Tiando information, they're going to find a lot of things that is going to answer some of that curiosity, and it's going to stimulate a whole bunch more, potentially. But it's still always up to the individual to not pursue that direction. And the influences in the lower forces of this world, which includes the Luciferian, space alien, fallen angel souls, big time, and all the humans that have been subject to that space alien bombardment for generations and generations, so have even that misinformation in their genes and their consciousness, in their, that even has to do with how individuals think about themselves as being successful and intelligent and a meaningful supporter of other people, and even being able to be a leader of the world, or countries in the world, and all that, all are part of the lesson ground that makes it harder and harder to even conceive of there being beings that want us to have the chance to choose to outgrow all those things that we found so enlightening to us, even spirituality, even religion. It all can really make us beef ourselves up, becoming a politician, even though there could be some good things that happen, there's a lot of things that happen that, people aren't going to be able to let go of when the older member comes around. Cause, they may see that older member talk somewhere and think, wow, that's interesting. I wonder if that's true. And then all of a sudden they'll hear these voices saying, you got to be kidding. That's the biggest bunch of malarkey I ever heard. And they'll say, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to go in that direction. I got too much, here and there and there and there. So the more somebody has going for them, sometimes the harder it is for them to, in the human kingdom, the harder it is for them to recognize that as something to leave behind. Now, Tiendo said that humans weren't meant to leave behind their human families. Um, and that's where we're at now. I'm not saying that somebody couldn't, but you would ask the next level for help on how to do that, and you would do it without leaving a mess, and it would probably be something that would have already been in motion to some degree, because the next level could have been helping us all along with detaching from our humanness. Uh, because the human family is uh, um, it, it's a family of flesh and blood, but it's not necessarily a family of mind, depending on um, uh, the pathways that any parents had taken to producing offspring. Um, and that's why some humans, they may have had a great upbringing, and like I feel like I had an adequate, good upbringing, but they just didn't fit in. They just, like me, I didn't ever feel like I fit in, so I was, you know, quite rebellious about things when I didn't really have a reason to be rebellious. And so, but I just knew that there was something more for me to do in this life, and so, I could only interpret it as traveling to the West. That's the way I thought about it. And of course, a lot of people were thinking about it that way in the United States, where this vehicle was raised. Um, and going to California was the big thing to do, right? Like, I was going through that in the late '60s, thinking that, and because that's what I was told, was where everything was happening. And in some ways it was, because that's where the next level older members were coming incarnate and starting to talk. And so it's very interesting to look back on that time and feel like, wow, so that whole inclination was because the next level was preparing that location on the planet for the older members to come to start giving their mind to other people in a direct way, right from their mouths. Because just influencing humans from the invisible, like on their spacecrafts or something like that, or through movies, which the next level does participate in some of, to help humans upgrade their thinking and update their thinking, even though they may see it as science fiction, but a part of them might be drawn to it because they sense there's some potential reality being depicted, and then they realize that, don't know when they realize it, but there's a lot to say about that, but I want to move on, but because I've kind of been rambling, I guess, but I'm trying to paint a lot of different pictures that are all part of one system that the next level started, which is a free will system, so that humans can become as rotten as they want to become or as good as they want to become. And the next level will help us through anything. And that there's no lab, of negativity in the next level. And Kathy, what was that quote from Doe? Do you remember it? Oh, okay. maybe she went and lay down. Anyway, but it has to do with that negativity has positive. But a positive can come out of every piece of negativity. Now, that's not a Pollyanna kind of talking and thinking. I don't know about you, but I've seen people, talk as if everything is a positive, and they can be criticized, and they'll say, "Well, we bless you, and we know you mean well," and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but uh, but it can become like a defense program that's put in, and there's a time and place for that, of course, because we don't want to make enemies. But a next level member, or even a student member of the next level, even a dropout, a flunk, someone who flunked out of that classroom, but is still in the school by my own choice. Um, uh, because of how much I feel like I was given, that I received and got experience with, and learned that Tiando's techniques and reasons for them are right on, so that it became my own knowledge. Uh, um, uh, when I see somebody talking about the broad subject of the record books, the scripture, if you want to put it in that term, which isn't all the same. Just everything that in the Bible doesn't mean it's from the next level's mind. Chunks of it are, but chunks of it have been distorted also. But anyway, so when I see people saying things that I can agree with, in terms of when they're actually reading scripture and saying this is what was said here and there, and how it means this and that and this and that, I can agree with that a lot of times, and Doe did as well, and I witnessed that while being with Doe when we were starting to look at scripture in the 90s, so that we could talk to people that believed in that point of view. I would say to people that yes, that seems true, but there's more. There's a lot more, actually, that they're not considering by what they said. And then I would proceed to give them ideas of what it is that they might want to consider as an update. And of course, when I would do that, if I would say that, I believe T and Doe were the two witnesses, the Father and Jesus returned in new vehicles, like they said they would. And I can point to different scriptures that talk about that in different ways. And so, but a lot of times they don't know what to do with it. And so their immediate response is to even laugh at me, or to mock me, or to just close me off and end the discussion and go about their business, which is all fine. I mean, I don't like that vibration, or tell me to leave if I was in their facility, which did happen to me a number of times when I was on the road talking about Tiendo to Christians for years. Well, not a lot of years, but probably a total of 1.5 actually, so I shouldn't say years plural, I guess. But if you count after I left the group, then it would probably be even more than that. Spread out a little bit here and there. Anyway, but so um, which I think is the duty of somebody, so that because the worst case scenario about giving somebody the updates that we believe are from T and Do's mind is that even with their first responses, it could still be a seed for them. And it doesn't mean that I need them to grow that seed. But if they do choose to grow that seed, then they're going to think about that more. And they might even put it up into what their idea is of the kingdom of God, the kingdom in the heavens, Jesus, the next level, and whatever they think about as being the highest source that created this planet and the life forms on it. And then the next level, if they're asking, like Jesus said over and over again, was part of the formula to ask and you shall receive, knock and the door shall be opened to you, seek and you shall find. If they don't do that, then they might never recognize that they were receiving some degree of update. And and it's not because of me, it's because of being one of the instruments that wants to be in service to T and Do by bringing their perception and information and concepts and behaviors and ways to others. And you can say, well, but what if you're wrong? And T and Do aren't what you said they were, then what are you doing? Well, then there's nothing lost because I'm not giving them anything that's detrimental to their lives. I'm not telling anybody what to do. T and Do didn't tell people what to do unless those individuals told them that we want to receive instructions from you. And that's what we all said to them many times over the years. Because they would remind us that they need to be asked. They don't like just dishing it out automatically. And they could tell when we didn't want it. Or even if just a few people in the classroom were having, second thoughts or whatever, they could sense those thoughts, and they knew which thoughts were not from their minds, but they didn't know exactly who in the classroom was absolutely, be absolutely sure about who in the classroom might be having those thoughts. While I'm at it, and before I get to the chat room again, which I will, and pretty soon, I just want to say that, frequently I'll be asked what it was like in the classroom. And this goes along with what I was saying before about that it was the hardest thing that that a human could do. T and Do would say that. And I didn't relate to it being that hard, like I said before. And, but since leaving, now I know how hard it is. Because now I'm subject to influences that are from the lower forces a lot of times that are normal for the human kingdom. And so I'm a little bit of a divided person in some regard because I already know the methods of getting rid of those thoughts that T and Do gave us, that I used those methods for 18 years or 19 years even in some cases, according to the different categories of growth. Because I know there were things about me that were not, well, I only learned after I left that the things that T told me would keep me off of the spacecraft because I wasn't learning enough. I wasn't adopting enough of their behaviors and ways. Uh, that had nothing to do with sexuality, by the way, but had to do with being a little too pleased with myself and liking to be seen as something special, and sarcasm with humans. When I felt like I knew better about something, and I would come off in a sarcastic way to them, to people that I would meet at my jobs and stuff, when they would be cursing and stuff, and not that cursing is that terrible of a thing to do, but it's not next level behavior, because members of the next level don't act like that towards one another, and they don't even act that way towards humans. Like, they don't have to emphasize their words with slangs that part of the human kingdom think is a sin to use, and other parts of the human kingdom it's just a crude terminology for something, that the next level just wouldn't do. But that doesn't mean it's like a sin to do that, to say certain words, even though there's religionists that will say that it's a sin even now, and that's why you see certain words not used. But then again, maybe the next level had a hand in upgrading our language, so that we don't grow up using hateful terms towards one another, or judgmental terms with one another, or say things to somebody that they could feel put down by, or which I try not to do, but it's almost inevitable that somebody with a sensitivity in that direction, that feels confronted by something that Tiendo said that I might be repeating, can take offense with it. And I really don't mean offense. I really hope that people will not take me that way, and I hope to learn to say things in a way that doesn't have sarcasm in it. Because a lot of times criticizing somebody, the sarcasm is a type of judgment that person just doesn't get it. They're missing the point, and that doesn't reflect well on them. And so that's not a next level behavior. Next level doesn't put out negativity like that. They take us for what we are, what we say, and what we want to do to improve what we say or to improve what we do by their standards. And their standards are higher than our standards. If humans want to live in peace on Earth, then the only place they're going to find true peace is next level membership. Because any peace found in the human kingdom is temporary at best, and it's not really meant to have because it keeps us satisfied with what we've become. In other words, we could be living day to day. We could have enough food, and enough of a living, and enough free time, and enough education, and enough entertainment, and enough, a decent family life, and nobody's threatening us per se, and we're not having any health crises yet, or I don't know if there's anybody that can say that about their entire lives. I think everybody's got to have something that challenges them to grow, to seeking. Well, if we lose that peace that we do have from having things going pretty well, like with a silver spoon in your mouth, which T&O said about their vehicles, that they felt like everything they did kind of worked for them. That doesn't mean that they didn't have challenges, but it worked out for them. And so for them to leave that behind in order to tell people that they came from outer space and they were here to bring updates to the Bible and to bring up fulfillments of prophecy, and that they recognized that they were talked about in Revelation 11 as the two witnesses, but they didn't really want to use that to try to convince people that they were who they said they were, because that was 2,000 years ago, and they had updates. That's what they wanted to focus on. And so, they were challenged by each other. Even T&O were challenged by one another. In a large way, according to what I've heard in the audio tapes, that some of them I heard in person. And so I knew about, but now I've even seen it actually talked about again by listening to the audio tapes. But getting back to the difficulty of being in the next level and being in the classroom, that we don't necessarily recognize as difficulty, which was the case for me in the classroom. I did recognize some of the difficulties, but it just wasn't a severe problem for me, where somebody else might have been more of a severe problem for. And I'll give you an example. We would have times where we were working in what humans would call the kitchen, where the food preparation took place. Okay? And so we all spent time in that department of the overall group. And we were taught to treat it as a lab experiment, because that would teach us how to have a good attention to detail, have high standards of cleanliness and everything else that goes with preparing food, like, and certain things that you prepare, you've got to try to be exact with your measurements. Otherwise, you can ruin the dish, by getting something that's not in that formula, in that recipe. And that we needed to do everything the way members of the next level do a lot of things in the labs, is have a check partner. Another student that wants the same thing, wants to do the job as best that he can. And they want to do it by the instructions that they got for putting that formula together from T&O's mind, because that's what they did for us. They gave us all those little nitty-gritty ways of doing things as they had problems and as they saw the results of the fuel that we were preparing for us to consume, that they wanted to be the best it could be under those circumstances. We would learn, they would tell us ways of changing the recipe, or doing it this way, or using a better technique, like the way that we would measure the flour so that we would have a consistent result in the bread and things like that. And so like one circumstance, I remember working with a fellow member of the group, and they seemed to be going to an extreme in my mind of scraping out every particle of food that was in the pot that we were putting into another container to save it for future usage or whatever it was. And, I didn't think there was anything wrong with leaving a couple kernels of rice behind. But they wanted to get every kernel, that kind of thing. And so I was tested at that moment with whether that was an appropriate use of our time, because T and Do, they weren't, when giving instructions, there were extremes on applying the instructions. But we didn't know what the extremes were because we're not the judges. We want the teachers to tell us, because we know the teachers have more mind than we have. Literally, more, bigger, more powerful, more perceptive, more understanding, more patient, more everything than we do. And they demonstrated that all the time. Even though some of the students might not have ever recognized it, or maybe some of them recognized some of it, but other areas they didn't recognize that T and Do had a connection that they were checking with their older members when they would give us instructions for something, and then they became check partners for one another on what they were both individually receiving from their other older member that was actually probably T's older member, or another part of T's mind that was still overseeing the whole operation, because she didn't need all her next level mind in order to do this task on Earth through that vehicle, because the vehicle doesn't really need that much mind compared to the amount of mind that that member of the next level had built, had taken in, had become one with, or knowledgeable about, and all that goes with that. So, at the same time, there was a way to handle that. And I didn't handle it in the right way. I mean, in the most right way, because if I thought that my partner was going to an extreme by getting all the rice out of the container, and I didn't question whether it was, and my partner didn't ask me, even though that was the role that partners agreed to take with each other, was to ask each other for help to do things the way that a member of the next level would do it. So there was a lot of gray area, though, on how a member of the next level would do it, unless T and Do actually told us, no, a member of the next level would, in that case, which I can't really define in a scientific way, they would say, well, just, swipe it here, swipe it there, swipe it there, swipe it there, and then be done with it. And so, yeah, there's going to be some residue left in the pot. I think they did eventually address that issue, because other people were going through the same kind of thing. And sometimes, it was kind of getting in the way of the experiment moving ahead to prepare the food. And so that was defeating the purpose, because the purpose was to do the task and get it done in the best way possible. And as quickly as possible, because the time frame was also important, so that your food didn't end up being cold and when it was supposed to be hot, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, but those kind of things happened throughout the classroom every day among a number of classmates in their daily tasks in the human kingdom, but doing the same things that humans do, but doing them in the ways that the older members gave us that reflected the way a member of the next level would do it. So another example would be closing the cabinet doors. You could close them gently so that you don't make much sound at all, or you could close it to where you make a racket, especially if you're doing it a lot, because you have to for some reason, and so T and Do would, when they were living in the same craft with us, they would hear those cabinet doors closing in the lab across the hallway from where their quarters were, and they wouldn't come out at the moment, but they would put it on their list of something to bring up to us in a question and answer kind of meeting, which you'll see throughout the audio tapes if you listen to them, happening. in real time. And so they would, as things would occur to them, they would think about whether they wanted to bring that up to specific individuals if it happens to pertain to a specific individual, or to even the whole lab crew, and say that, you all are very noisy in this crew. And they also gave us that lesson when we were eating, that the sound of the silverware, and you could see it happening to where people in the cafeteria making a racket, and it's like it's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of what we accept when a whole bunch of people are in a restaurant eating and talking and whatever else they're doing. Which we didn't do the talking part, but we still made noises with our utensils and things like that. And once they told us that, we could have more restraint in our actions, so our noise level was reduced. And when we reduced it, a lot of noise went away. And it's not like, they were, complaining and, they weren't like that. But they were giving us upgraded ways of acting. Smoother motions, not like walking, clumping with our feet, making a lot of noise, or up and down the steps, not making a lot of noise, which was something that I had to be conscious of. Because the purpose, the classroom instruments for learning lessons was using the human vehicle. That the human vehicle is going to do the things that it's got the programming through the genes and through society and their upbringing and their choices, has all these ideas and automatic ways of doing things. And some of them, humans have adopted higher, more refined, I think is a better term, ways of doing things. Like not making a lot of noise, not talking so loud that you can hear the person all over the house, or so soft that nobody can actually hear what you're trying to say. But learning not to just ramble. I don't really feel like I'm rambling, but some people say that I am, and I just say that as a joke, because if somebody thinks I'm rambling, that's fine. They don't have to listen to me. I don't even get paid for doing this, so it's fine. And maybe that was a little sarcastic there. It easily slips in, to say that. Like gossip and things like that. Like when you're talking about somebody else, and you don't have the task to do that, then it's not your business. Now, in the human kingdom, I'm not the one that's going to say to somebody that's talking about somebody else that they're doing something wrong by that, because the human kingdom is different. And, but the human kingdom is filled with people that the whole habit is talking about what the other people aren't doing right or good or efficiently or whatever it is. They're critical of everything. And that's not a member of the next level. They have to be kind of hit in the face by somebody's actions to see that, to wanting to offer them another way of looking at it that they might see as criticizing them, when a member of the next level wouldn't be criticizing them. They would be actually trying to help them because they actually know better. Know better in the context of having peace and having harmony in our tasks, in our operations for the next level. Now, in the human kingdom, you don't have that kind of focus among people. Sometimes you do. I mean, a lot of times you do, when you're part of a bigger group, or let's say you're part of a football team, or a kitchen crew, or the PTA at the school where your kids are going, and you're trying to accomplish things, then there's that's all part of. We get lessons from that. You get lessons on how to say things to where somebody's not going to be offended maybe by it, and how to accept criticism without going on a downer. Or if it does create a downer, getting out of that downer as soon as possible and converting it into a positive in terms of, okay, maybe it does apply. Maybe I am being sarcastic with somebody in the way I say things. And I don't want to come across that way. If we know that much, I mean, if we have that kind of that the consciousness of not wanting to be sarcastic because we don't want to really hurt somebody. We want to give them some knowledge that we feel like we might have if they seem to be asking for it in some way. But if they're not asking in some way, then why give it? Why offer it? Now, I see on the internet all the time where I'm saying things here and I'm actually asking by just doing it for input from people if they want to give it to me. But if they start to just tell me you're insane and blah 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 like that, or I'm going to hell, the common kind of things I get once in a while. Maybe even every live stream I get a little bit of it, or a lot of it sometimes. Uh, um, uh, uh, um, I need to, before I respond, I need to think I want to respond as a member of the next level would respond. So, Doe, what do you think I can say to this person? And sometimes I don't do that. And I just go by my previous program that can even come on pretty strong to people when they, accuse me of going to hell because they think that I'm listening to Lucifer and calling it Tian-Do or however they, define it all. But, oh, that screen is too big. Oh, that's better. Yeah, because some of the wording on the pictures that are on the slideshow were being blocked out. All right, so chat room. Thank you. So I'm just trying to give people little clues about some of the things that seem like they're little challenges, but just to summarize, in a sense, when that's happening to you over and over again, let's say you're somebody with a vehicle that it has some clumsiness, and so the members of the group tend to think that that person's always going to be that way, and that they're not going to actually learn to control the vehicle in such a way that it's not as clumsy. Or maybe it's not clumsy at all anymore. Because it learned to have forethought on doing things instead of just jumping into something and breaking something because of that, or, because of clumsiness and carelessness. So they might think that, if they ask their partner for help in that regard, that if you see me doing something that you think is clumsy compared to the way a member of the next level might do it, even though we might not know for sure that they're not doing it the way that a member of the next level would do it in that circumstance. It doesn't hurt for us as their partner being asked to give them that feedback, for that person to hear that and say to themselves, thank you, I'll examine that, which was an update that we were given, because when somebody would do that with their partner, a lot of times the other person would be defensive and say, you're seeing me wrong, or, or that's ridiculous, or, whatever it is. And everybody probably listening to this live stream, that went away, okay, probably has had experiences with defensiveness. It's a common characteristic, I believe, among humans, and doesn't mean that it's wrong. But in the classroom, where all behaviors and ways that were of the human kingdom need to be reprogrammed in the mind, in the soul, with the next level perception of that. And so, and next level members wouldn't be defensive. They would hear it, and they might say, I don't agree with you. Or they might say, I'll examine it, and go about their business, and then they'll examine it. And if the shoe fits by their examination, they're trying to be an objective examination, then they'll say, and they'll apply it, try to apply what was given to them. Because it doesn't hurt them to examine themselves, and it doesn't hurt them to upgrade their way of speaking, or their thinking, or their behavior, or whatever it is. So the classroom was very a consolidated environment for that kind of opportunity, and all the individuals in the classroom, especially over time, were both challenged by one another in different ways, and could be overstimulated by somebody else, to where you don't want to ever point out anything that they might be doing that might not be behaviors of a member of the next level, because you don't want to create any kind of friction at all, because your chemistry with that other vehicle is kind of, you like where it is, you like getting along with that person because maybe your vehicle's attracted to them, or whatever it is. And so you get lessons in that regard as well. But in the human kingdom, I think we all potentially have those experiences, because that's part of the human kingdom. But it's not necessarily as accelerated, except now, I believe, growth is being accelerated. I think that the lower forces are being allowed by the next level to have more influence over everything that's happening in the world that we see in the news and blah, blah, blah. And that humans are also acting out what they have come to believe. I mean, if they believe that some people from a certain country are their enemy, then they're going to probably act towards that person as if they're an enemy, even though people from that country may be more good than they are, or more evolved in some way than they are, or more intelligent than they are, and so to judge anybody by their ethnic or racial or gender, or by how much money they make, or their intelligence, is a human characteristic that reflects the way the space alien souls have come to think about themselves. I think in large part, even though uh, the next level judges them according to what they've been given too, and some of them may still be growing, but some may be ready for recycling. So the next level is the judge of that. Because with the garden analogy, when the garden is infected with weeds that are strangling the plants that are growing, that are still have the opportunity to grow better and grow into next level members, then the next level is going to limit that. Uh, and yet during the time period of right before the planet civilization is recycled, uh, they're stepping up, allowing the lower forces to have their way with humans, and humans then in the leadership positions all over the planet are more attractive, are just as attractive as they've always been to the space alien souls, because it's through those humans that they can get some of their agenda potentially fulfilled, which includes getting off the planet, which includes being able to combat what they think is another space alien group coming to recycle, and even recycle them, so they think of it as their own survival, that they see if they can fight against what they think is another space alien group with better technology. And so they want humans to develop technology. And they want to do it transparently, not transparently, they want to do it in a way that, well, I don't know how conscious a lot of the humans are that they're actually motivated by the space aliens' mind. Because they've had it their whole lives, a lot of them, and they don't know any differently. They think that's normal and think they're the guardians of the planet. And so when you see people acting as if they're the guardians of the planet and they're going to make it so that, you know, the planet doesn't go through certain cycles of heating and cooling, and that the next level know very well how to manage, and they're gonna think that they can act like the next level because those space alien souls have it in their computer banks that there are these individuals that have more technical abilities than they have, but they seem to have lost the perspective that that body of that organization, the next level organization, are advanced beyond human and beyond space alien human equivalents to the same degree or some similar degree as humans are advanced above, say, dogs and cats and elephants and whatnot. In other words, the gap is that big between the next level and the space aliens. And the gap between space aliens and humans is probably very, very small, if at all, because they may have gone backwards so much from the places that they had once arrived at, that to where they no longer recognize the next level exists, and this is a program to become a member of the next level here on Earth, that they're actually teaching that to humans, not like in a classroom in a university, even though it can happen in the university, but can happen in all different walks of life, you know, through the leadership of all the organizations and everything, and the governments and the corporations and things that, you know, and that's why you see such a huge focus on the family among Christians, because the space aliens want a lot of genetic material. That's one of the things. But they also, maybe even more so, want to keep humans away from believing in the next level's teachings, because they want those souls for themselves. So they want to capture humans' minds, actually, so that those humans could actually be of service to them, whether the humans know it or not. They end up being, end up being enslaved to them to some degree, the way that we can be enslaved to the corporations because we have to make so much money, so we have to work so many hours to try to make enough money to make ends meet, and we don't have any time for anything else beyond that. And our minds are so occupied with that, or our ideology that we think is a superior ideology, that we've got to save everybody from themselves. You're all killing each other because of you're smoking a cigarette, or you're burning fossil fuels in your stove to keep warm. So they want to put limits on all that, while they make tons of money because of that, and then they can take that money and do whatever they want with the building of the technology that can even be useful technology that the next level might even like for them to develop, like solar technologies and wind technologies for producing energy. Because after all, it's pretty common sense that if there's wind and that can generate energy, then why not try to harness it and try to do it in the right way, so that you're not, causing somebody else to be mistreated or in some way or whatever. Anyway, that's another facet to that. So let me go back to the chat room. I never did get back there, but I don't mean to neglect you. I just have so many thoughts, and I want to complete some of them, even though I know I leave a lot of stones unturned. Yeah, restraint, Avatar, is discipline. Yes, it's self-discipline, though. It's not somebody else telling you. I mean, yes, in Tiendo's classroom, they gave us ideas of what kind of restraint we could have to be exercising a more refined behavior and way. I skipped a few people, I'm sorry. So let me go, I'm going to have to go back to the beginning and see where I left off. Oh, Old School Dave, yeah, I saw when you came in, but I was in the middle of talking, so I didn't say hello. He says, hello, my wonderful YouTube friends. Sorry I'm late. Well, considering that, Kathy and I never tell anybody what we're doing, you're certainly not late. Although I appreciate you wanting to be here for the beginning of the stream. Good to have you. Participation. Finch says, hi Sawyer, Kathy, and everyone here. Hello, Finch. Avatar says, let's go. And then RVW says, I have a Heaven's Gate away team patch on my backpack. Well, I like that because it could stimulate conversation. Somebody could say, it's a way of like putting your shingle up and saying, I like talking about this subject, even whatever we believe about it. It stimulates ideas and thinking about it. And that's, I want to say something about that. Because, like myself, and I know Kathy, go through times where we're being bombarded by negativity. That's making us feel useless, or like, we're just like rats in a rat wheel, going around over and over again, having to go to work just to have food on the table, and and seeing the world happening, things that are happening, Armageddon talk and everything, and it can be, and not being able to do anything about it, and wondering if it's all a waste of time, and whatever the thoughts are that bombard us, and we go through it, and it's not like it's wrong to go through it. It's like the next level is actually allowing it to happen in an accelerated way, so that we can learn the techniques of recognizing it sooner and sooner, and blocking out the negative parts of it, so it doesn't like kind of cripple us in our minds or even physically, to some degree, by having us be so tired and worn out that we just want to sit around and you know mope, or just not have any energy to have any positive thoughts. And so one of the last times that I went through that period of time, which seemed to happen right after Kathy got out of it, um, uh, um, I was thinking, maybe I'm not doing anything for T&O. Maybe they don't need me for anything, and I mean, I already knew that they didn't need me in a kind of absolute kind of way. I knew that right from the beginning, even though I believe they're making use of what I can provide from their minds, um, by maybe keeping the lower forces at bay that would try to shut me down, even though it doesn't seem like I'm doing that much significance here. I think there are a potential for people to start looking at T&O's information more for themselves, in order to, see for themselves what was involved in this. And because of my having that experience and continuing to have that experience by listening to tapes and listening to them with Kathy and talking about things, and then trying to apply different things to what's happening in the world, people get some ideas that they might otherwise not have. So in that way, I can be having some positive service. Okay, but I realized that even if I was not here doing this, the next level has ways that either somebody would be doing this, or that individuals that were asking the next level in their own way, not even necessarily knowing about T&O, would be shown certain things, because the next level can give help to anybody to see their mind and be inclined to give it away to somebody else. Even if they're just saying, go to the Heaven's Gate website. It's interesting reading material, and there's a lot of things in there that every time I read it, it's like kind of blows my mind. At the same time, makes sense. And the parts that don't make sense to me yet, I kind of feel like will make sense if I stick with it. And if they believe that way, I think they're on the right track. And they're still going to be challenged, even with that attitude. But meeting those challenges and coming away with positive results is growing the mind. And by growing the mind, we're able to perceive more of the reality of the next level. And we're able to see more in T&O's teachings, and recognize how to apply those teachings to us in our current circumstances. And that can benefit the entire civilization. That actually influences all the genetic strains of humans, potentially. Not all at once. It's not like a magic kind of thing, but but those thoughts do have a type of contagiousness to them. Maybe contagion isn't the right word for it, because normally you think of a contagion as related to disease. And this is the opposite of disease. This is medicine. That so negativity or this difficult circumstances is medicine that we need. Sometimes we need big doses of it to help us break out of a state of depression that we don't even know we're in, or just being stagnant in growth. Just getting along, just satisfied with our environment, satisfied with our lives. Satisfaction, even though Tian don't want us to be satisfied by certain things, they don't want us to want that satisfaction. I don't know if that's the way to say it. The way that they said it was the next level wants you to have nice things, but they don't want you to want those nice things. So that means it's not wrong if you have the ability to have something that's nice. We're talking about physical objects or because what they want us to want is their mind, because that's the only way we're going to evolve to be beyond human. Other than that, then we're part of the systems that includes recycling the mind and body, so that the planet can be brought to a circumstance to where it's not saturated with the lower forces thinking, the misinformation mind. The concept that a human's life is supposed to be, be born, grow up, have a family, have a have a career, make money, have fun, do some things, grow the family, send them to college, pay for your burial plot, take trips here and there, vacations, do this, do that. That's not the that's a status quo that has growth opportunities built into it. Yes, galore. So, anybody that's in those circumstances isn't doing something wrong. They're getting their lessons. But the entire human kingdom all have different degrees of lessons to learn. And you can even have the same lesson over and over and over again, even across multiple lifetimes, that you even have conquered, so that you don't have anger issues anymore. Anger without a cause, a good cause, a next level cause. Like somebody hurting somebody else is a cause for anger. That doesn't mean you go blow that person away that's doing that. You try not to, but self-defense, I think, is an acceptable thing to do when another human is threatening somebody else. But then when it gets blown out of proportion, like the way countries do, sometimes, I'm not saying all the time that's the circumstance, because the vehicles aren't the end result, even though the vehicles add to the genetic pool that can be in an upgrading growth, to where you could have, theoretically, probably after the recycling takes place and all the weeds are removed from the planet, and the ones that are still in human vehicles that are weeds have battled against each other to destroy each other so much to where they're out of the way, leaving the ones that were trying to live in a upgraded, right kind of peaceful existence, kindness and gentleness, and we're growing in that direction, but we're hampered by the lower forces. They're left behind to maybe start the next civilization um, in a way where they don't have that influence anymore from the lower forces, and they can still have lessons, but in a new beginning, it gives them the chance to get their head above water. Where in the human kingdom right now, if you're keeping your head above water, which might look like you're not harming anybody else or your own vehicle, um, that might be the best that the next level can hope for some. Where others might be able to get a little above water enough to, start peering into, recognizing Tiando's above human minds. We go back to the chat room. Alan Stevens says, and this is all true? Question mark. Well, true is, I think so, from what I've been saying so far. I'm not saying my analogies are the best, because I'm not like a parrot that was taught to say these things, and it's just like reading from a script of my memory or whatever. Because the next level wouldn't have parrots. They wouldn't have robots. They don't need that. They can make robots. They can make robots that humans wouldn't even pretend to understand how they operate. Well, maybe they would have some concepts of how they operate, but because the next level gives them that. If the next level doesn't give them the ability to learn how certain technologies work, they're never going to know about it. That's why for thousands of years on this planet, humans didn't have high technology. They didn't even have electricity for a long period of time. And now electricity is as common as anything. But just in a very short period of time, starting more or less in the 1900s, even though there was ample evidence of starting before that in degrees, but in the 1900s is where it escalated more and more technology, because the next level wanted people to have those upgrades, because then they would see that ways of thinking of the past that were depicted in the religions and the mythologies and things like that of people from outer space, like Pluto had the god of Pluto and the god of this and the god of that, and which some of that was probably next level members, and some of that was space aliens that were fallen angels that were once in positions that were above human enough to where they had certain overviews that humans didn't have, even though they didn't necessarily have the knowledge on how to put certain technologies together. In fact, they rarely probably had that kind of knowledge. Or they could have been working in a lab in the next level that had to do with a certain technology that they were helping humans achieve. Anyway, so I mean, truth is in degrees, I think. Growth is in degrees. I mean, you could think that you understand how something works until you find out that there are ways that something can work in a different way from the way that you see it works. And you don't know that until the next level, gives you that other way. And then a whole new realm opens up. And the scientists that are working in astrophysics and stuff, they're constantly seeing upgrades to their previous things that were written in the in the history books, that they were, the textbooks and things like that. But sometimes they don't update them. Sometimes they don't actually believe that they're getting updates because they have a preconceived idea of uh, what can be updated and what not. Like ask a scientist if it's possible to go beyond the speed of light, and I bet you're going to get a lot of people that are going to say, no, it's not possible. Because they were going to say that, by the time you became aware of it, it would have already be gone, because it was the speed of light, or it didn't get here yet. Or, it got here, millions of years before that source of that light was exhausted. Had become exhausted during that time. So that object might not even exist anymore, but you're still seeing it now. As if there aren't other ways of going faster than the speed of light, like through wormholes and things, which Tiendo called freeways before that terminology was used on a regular basis of wormholes and black holes and things like that. Okay, so uh, yeah. So Alan and Stephen, can he communicate with members on the other level like T and Do? Well, yes, you can, but doesn't mean that they're gonna.
No, he's asking if you can.
Oh, can he communicate with members on the other level like T and Do? Well, yes, I can, but everybody can. Uh, um, but but that doesn't mean communication takes the form of me asking a question and getting back an answer. Um, it can be that specific sometimes, but will I know for a fact that that answer came from T and Do's mind? No, I won't know that. I may think that it is the case, and I may act like it's the case because the answer, well, I believe from what I've been given from Tiendo, that is evidenced through the audio tapes, so other people can actually share in most of it if they want. um, has a kind of signature of sounding like something the next level would say, sounding like something T and or Do might say in response to my question. However, I don't know if I'm interpreting it right. So what needs to happen is if I do ask a question in my mind of them, and then I feel like, hours later, weeks later, year later, whatever it is, I feel like I get some ideas that seem to reflect on having the signature of my question behind them. Then I have the chance to pull on that thread a little bit more. In other words, think about what their answer is and see how it fits with the other things that are related that T and Do have given us. And then I might say, well, I really feel like, they said this to me or that to me. And a number of times that happened to me in dreams, even though dreams can be used by the lower forces and dreams can be just a matter of some type of garbage collection of the computer system of the brain and mind that's happening during sleep, or that the lower forces are using, or discarnate humans that are deceased that try to attach to human bodies and use those human bodies in a timeshare kind of way are providing me. So, there's a number of thoughts that we can have that can be from that are not from the next level. Like if it's negative or if like you have a dream, that you wake up and you're horrified by it, or it's shocking to you, you're afraid or whatever. Those aren't things that the next level would give us. So that's coming from some other source. It might be the memory of some movie you watched, that's coming to the surface, or it might be an influence using your brain with the programming they have when they were in a human vehicle, or it could be actually a space alien soul actually projecting thoughts to the human kingdom or to segments of the human kingdom or even to specific individuals if they want to try to get them, whatever their agenda is, for the discarded influences. Their agenda might not be anything more than trying to get a buzz from your response to their thoughts, because you might do something that they like to do. Like maybe you'd like to go to the refrigerator and eat the whole carton of ice cream, when you know better, but you had this thought that would be a fun thing to do, and so you went there and you just kept on eating and eating and eating beyond what you really needed to have some satisfaction in that regard, and which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you can go to an extreme. And influences might want you to go to an extreme because they're not going to have the sick stomach by eating a whole half gallon of ice cream, because they don't have a stomach anymore. And they don't have to stay with your vehicle when it's experiencing a sick stomach. So in that way, we learn to have restraint. We learn to have discipline over our vehicle. And that's what the whole classroom, well, a big part of the classroom was about. Disciplining our vehicle with the standards we were getting from those that we recognized were our teachers from the next level, because we took that consciousness in from the souls that were associated with these vehicles and made it, and our own mind, the mind from the vehicle, didn't reject it and accepted it, and even enjoyed it, because I enjoyed being in the classroom. It was a very pleasant environment. But then again, I wasn't as participatory in some ways as I could have been, and I thought I was, because if my standards weren't as high as some of the other members probably had better standards, higher standards. But that might have been just in certain departments. I might have been really doing well in one department of life, like, keeping angry thoughts around, away from people. Where somebody else might have grew up in a circumstance to where if someone said something to them, they wanted to smack them across the face. And maybe they even did it. I wasn't in that. I didn't have that programming. And so if I would get angry about something, if you pushed me enough, my vehicle would probably respond, and maybe respond in a way, that would yell at the person or something, raise my voice and show some anger. But I don't think it would, well, I don't want to say that it couldn't go past that, because I don't want to test myself. We don't test ourselves. We don't put ourselves in circumstances where we're going to be faced with a big test, unless we're willing to fail that test. And even if we fail the test, it doesn't mean that we can't still pass that test in the future. But it gets harder to pass the tests if we continue to fail them, because we end up justifying ourselves. Why don't you have a Heaven's Gate regulation haircut? I don't know. You could say that when I left, I lost my mind, that part of my mind, and I I didn't, and so I went back to the programming that I had, the vehicle had, before I began my next level journey. I mean, in earnest, because everybody potentially can be in degrees of a next level journey, whether they know it or not. But there is a point to where uh, humans can, I think, arrive at some degree of recognizing Ti and Do as their teachers and thus wanting to be engaged in the journey that they laid out. And you can see the Heaven's Gate book gives the entire journey. Well, I mean, there's more. There's more in-depth understanding in the audio tapes, what they were all about. But the bottom lines of what's required to enter into the next level kingdom above human is in the book. Or they wouldn't have let that be defined for us, and it wouldn't have that name of being how and when the door to the kingdom level above human, Heaven's Gate kingdom level above human may be entered. May be entered. So that's why I don't have the short haircut. Maybe that's why they didn't take you, because I didn't have the right haircut? No, that's not the reason I didn't go with them. I know that as a fact. Avatar. Well, I mean, it's a symptom of the whole overall reason I didn't go with them, but it was my choice not to go with them. I had options. And I thought I was ready to go with them. But when I left, I didn't know, I no longer felt like I was ready to go with them, even though I didn't know whether they would put into effect the method that they did choose to use that they talked about while I was still in the classroom. Because sometimes they were just trying to, they didn't know exactly what they would do, and they felt like it was instruction to present us with ideas. And they presented us with a lot of ideas. In fact, the tape in 1985 that they made, that Kathy just listened to and I listened to a little bit of, talked about how what if one of them, whether Ti and Do, left before us? How would we handle it? And see, people in the media, they don't know about that. So they think that that Do got off track when Ti left before he and the rest of the crew left their human vehicle. And in that way, when they were already thinking about that, as shown in that 1985 tape that was just months before Ti did lose her vehicle, while Ti was actually somewhat sick when she was talking, but she didn't give any clues that I was aware of being sick, even though I knew that she had her eye removed about a year and a half before that meeting was given. Those meetings were given in the spring of '85. So yes, Avatar, that was the. Except I left in 1994, not 92, 93. September. Oh, so it wasn't the haircut then. And they won't be back until 43, 80. Well, we don't know. There's no nobody knows when there'll be another classroom. Whether they come back, as it talks about in Revelation 19, in order to complete the recycling and spading under and preparation for whatever's next, and they're actually physically here, they won't be, according to Doe, here in human vehicles. They don't need to do that anymore. If they could do it from the next level, they wouldn't have even come incarnate because they don't like it. It's like deciding to go live in a rat's nest or a snake nest, and spend your years there because of the amount of deceit and manipulation and ugliness and hatred.
The bombardment from the lower forces too.
What's that?
The bombardment.
Yes, the bombardment from the lower forces, convincing us to believe in illusionary thinking and replacing the challenging teachings from Jesus, for example, with some human interpretation that doesn't require anything of them. Even thinking that to work for membership in the next level was going against Jesus because he did it for you. That whole idea of Jesus doing it for you is completely from the lower forces. Even though he demonstrated what each individual needed to do on their own, with the help of their older members that they would be asking for help with, who would help them, but help them do it for themselves, not actually do the task for them. Because the next level, that's the way the next level is. They want strong members of the next level that are there because they recognize the value of being in the next level to some degree, enough to put the work out. The Museum of Death in Hollywood has a life-sized diorama of a Heaven's Gate cultist suicide room. Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. Huh?
You jump back to the beginning of the chat?
Oh, I did? Oh, I need to.
No.
Let me see if I can get back to the right spot. Yeah, well, there's differences between me and the others. Besides the haircut. I mean, they also didn't grow their beard, except one time when Doe was having to do some things in Houston and living in Houston, he grew a beard so that he wouldn't be so identified by people that knew him, because he was known in the media to some degree because he was so prevalent in the art community, with singing in the Houston Opera and things like that. So he didn't really want to be recognized, especially after 1975 and 6, when he was considered to be a dangerous cult leader. That was broadcast all over the world, but especially throughout every city in the United States that had a newspaper, I'm sure did a report on the UFO cult. I know I read that in many newspapers as I was traveling around the country in 1975. I would go into libraries and read the newspapers and see articles all the time. I mean, not all the time. It wasn't like every day a newspaper would have an article about that. So it was a relatively small splash. Okay, so
My girlfriend is looking at me.
yes,
And it's time to go.
yeah, it's time to finish because we have to go to sleep because I have to work. So malarkey isn't used enough nowadays. Nice use of it, buddy, says old school Dave. Yeah, I do explain it in why I left in other videos, and you can also read Sawyer's story, which is in, which is the title of a document in my on my blog, which is Sawyer HG, like in Heaven's Gate, SawyerHG.wordpress.com. And just do a search for that Sawyer's story.
But you're working on your autobiography.
But I'm working on a new, updated uh, autobiography now. Kathy's helping me. The Museum of Death and oh, I said that already. Okay. Hi, sunshine. Hi. Why does it have to jump so much?
When somebody makes a comment, it jumps.
So if they're done and not coming back for a long time, but we can make contact with them on another vibrational level, what do you propose you do? They left behind their book that gives you everything you need to know about how a human goes from becoming a remaining human to becoming a member of the next level, however lifetimes it might take. Doesn't matter. The formula is always the same. And it has to do with separating from the human kingdom. But even in one's own way, when one, by their own, recognizes that what they're being told they should do or must do or what they should believe, what they shouldn't believe, what they support, what they shouldn't, when they see through those things enough to be thirsty for what's next for them, then if they project their thinking, their desire, their asking into the heavens, into the outer space, distant areas in outer space, as far as you can imagine, to the highest source that they can imagine, to learn the truth. And then they open their minds to who is talking about that truth. Then they'll start to see more and more of what's been real the whole time, but they just weren't ready for it at that point. And they can grow as fast as they want to grow. The next level aren't like humans to where they hold people back because they don't want to lose their own positions. They don't do that. Right, I was talking about vulgarity before, Avatar. And that restraint is discipline. May the wage cage be damned. Yeah, right. However, it's a way to make sticks. And what was revealed to me was that not to judge myself, but just keep on keeping on, and not give in. You know, not give in to the lower forces wanting to keep me down. Because they'll do that to everybody in their own ways. I should be getting my What If They Were Right shirt soon. Oh, that's great. Avatar. The information that you've been willing to provide to the public has been indispensable. I think you are of use. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Avatar. It's your own pursuit that I believe recognizes some of that. I'm not saying that it's indispensable, but feeling like it is, I don't think is a negative. We all have a cat. Yes, Kathy had a cat before I met her. And that cat, Evie, is a very interesting cat. She doesn't think she's a cat. We don't think. She doesn't want to be with other cats.
No,
And she's very talkative. R.A. Ra. Alright, so folks, that's the end of the chat room. If I missed anything, you want to put it in the comments. I'll try to get to it. Do you have any have conventions? I just saw something. We have had some meetings, but we don't really have the means to travel all over the place. So if someone wants to give us a chunk of money and have us come to their town and give a meeting, I would do that. We would both do that.
We won't take it. We wouldn't. Because then we'd be, I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, if someone wants to host us, if we can get there,
If somebody wants to set up a meeting place.
yeah, set up a meeting place. But then we still have to be able to get there, and we can't even hardly afford to drive this a motorhome there to many places because of the price of gas, and our income's not very big. That's why I said, give us a chunk of money. But I kind of feel that if the next level really wanted us to do that, they would provide probably a way of some individuals feeling to do that, to give us help to do that.
Which they have.
Yes, they have. That's right. We've done about 4 meetings in the last 2 years.
Doesn't sound like a lot, but.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, right? But
It's a lot of effort.
that was because of other people
Everybody's part.
that helped us do them. That helped us with our expenses so that we had the time to do it. Okay, then,
Well, we have to be somewhere where we can work.
yeah, because we
I
have to
don't
be
know that
someplace where we
anybody-
can work.
I mean, I don't know that anybody helped with our expenses.
Well, I just meant it in a general way that if we didn't,
We
you know,
did our
to
own.
one location where we went and did a meeting,
We, had a
we
place
did it
to
kind
park.
of on the way to here.
Well, and having a place to park is
We had a place to park, right?
helping with expenses for sure.
Right, that's what I mean. So I mean, so we actually, you know, put a requested amount of money on the tickets, and gave a 3-hour presentation that we needed that money to pay for our gas to the next location, literally, right? So I mean, it's not like we went out on the town after
We're
that.
not like profiting.
Yeah, we're not like really profiting from anything because there's not enough money in it. We don't want to charge a lot of
Even
money
trying to.
because we want people that want to come talk to, you know, hear from us in person, to have that opportunity if they want it. And so I mean, if somebody showed up and they didn't have any money, I would say, yeah, come on, come in, you know, come into the meeting, because we don't want you to not have that opportunity. Not saying that, you know, it's just understandable for people. I just like people hearing from people that have experience with Tia Nova teaching. That both Kathy and I have, and we've
I
had.
don't have that experience.
You've got some experience, considerable
I've listened
experience.
to tapes, but I mean, I don't have. You know.
Right, it's not exactly the same, but it doesn't really matter because, you know,
Next generation.
next generation. Well, you know, when T&O first started in '75, and they gave us statement
and I was
one,
born in '74, and y'all came through the city that I was born in.
right, South Bend,
That's right.
Indiana, and gave a meeting there.
Yeah, in 70, was it 74?
75 or 6. I'm not sure exactly what the date of the meeting was there. Well, several meetings in that area, right? Fort Wayne was 76. Because I remember that one.
I just thought that was interesting.
But South Bend was, right, so Kathy might have been given a deposit at that time, or tagged. Her vehicle might have been tagged at that time. Or maybe it didn't happen then.
I should have known it was right on the back of the poster.
Avatar says we're doing after hours. Yes, we are.
Yeah, so it just says 75 to 76. South Bend is listed.
So Avatar says, very interesting, laughing out loud. And then Old School Dave says, you all have a great evening. Thank you for the time. Thank you, Old School Dave. And then Avatar says, I know I feel that way because I wouldn't know a lot of stuff I know without your videos going into detail. We're doing after hours. Glad to try to help, Avatar.
Why did I think that you guys had been in Elkhart? It's not listed on there. I don't know where.
It's not?
No.
I thought you told me that too before.
I know. I don't know.
Well, maybe it
why.
was in the 94
I
meetings.
just looked.
Oh, no? Okay. All right, folks. Good night.